Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Leslie Ann Warden, and I'm here with you today to discuss digital recording solutions in archaeology. I want to talk about a database solution that I'm using during fieldwork, during actual excavations, as well as a database and business intelligence solution that I'm using for the analysis of ceramics. I use both of these in tandem during excavations of the Como-Hisson Provincialism Project, KHPP, which is an excavation that I direct out of Roanoke College. And I use InfoArc as well, not just for the ceramics at Como-Hisson, but also for the Ceramics of the Realities of Life project, which is directed by Dr. Johanna Siegel of the German Archaeological Institute, and that's, of course, based at Elephantine Island. So I'm going to start with the fieldwork database and talk to you about why we need fieldwork solutions. And then I'm going to go into the specific ceramics database and business intelligence solutions. Now let me screen share for you. All right, so what you're looking at here is the fieldwork database for the Como-Hisson Provincialism Project, KHPP. Now note that this database was not created for KHPP. It was originally created for the Urinardi Regional Project run by Dr. Laurel Bestock at Brown University. But then they're trying to develop it so this can be a larger archaeology solution. And so we're field testing, or they are field testing it at various different sites in various different parts of the world where the Egyptian tests run, if you will. So I should probably start us off with, why did I bother? Why did I even care to look at a fieldwork database when I started excavations at this site in 2016? The issue with archaeology is that a lot of it is still paper recorded. And so you'll go out and you'll excavate, and often, not at all sites, but often go out and record what you're excavating in forms and paper forms that are then uploaded to a database, or sometimes at some sites left as paper forms. That is data that becomes digital, but is born, of course, in traditional analog method. I was very interested in getting data born digital, in part because I had seen how much time it takes to take these analog data and convert them into digital data. It takes a lot of time and back-end processing. It allows for additional error, not just the error of the excavators as they're writing on the forms, but then the error of the transcribers as they're putting it into the computer. And frankly, paper forms and the diaries and all of the other paper things that we work with, I think are very important. I still keep a paper diary. In fact, here's our 2019 KHPP diary. And I still do all of my drawings on paper. I don't see any real solution for that yet. But at the same time, if all of our data stays in paper, paper is really hard to search, right? You've probably all had this when you work through, say, a PDF versus an actual physical book. You know, PDF, you Control F, you find the words, you can focus a little bit more cleanly. So paper is a little bit harder to search. And then paper, God, is a pain in the rear to store for forever. And so we have to, as archaeologists, think about what's going to happen after we die, because it's going to happen. But when it does, our sites are very frequently not fully published. I mean, just go into George Andrew Reisner's archives and you will see the plethora. Leonard Woolley, another great example of a fabulous archaeologist who did great archaeology and didn't publish all of it. Archaeology creates so much data that even if you are diligently publishing, you're not going to publish all of it. It's not going to happen. But because you have destroyed the archaeological record, that's what we do, right? When we excavate it, we remove a wall, we take out a deposit. You can't go and revisit it. Because of that, it is incumbent upon us to record everything very carefully and to think about how future generations will access these data. That's why I was so keen to have a digital solution in the field. Because that digital solution, I mean, my notebooks will go to the Roanoke College archives, and I hope one day somebody will come and look at my notebooks, obviously, and check the paper drawings out, obviously. They'll be there, inshallah, for forever. But it's almost easier to archive something digitally, right? Especially now with cloud technology. The other perk about a digital database, and you're going to see several additional perks as we move through, but is that you're looking at the copy that's on my computer, but all of my specialists and all of my excavators have access to exactly the same data. This is phenomenal because it means that we can share data in real time versus if it's in paper, then I have to email whoever has it. I'm the director, actually, it should all be me, but then that means they all need to email me, heaven forbid, and I have to field all of that. This way we can all actually see what's going on and all have access to the primary data. So this is how the database works, if you will. So of course, it's set up for several sites. If I was to start excavating here at Roanoke College, which is something that we're discussing doing a North American excavation, we would just add a new site to it. But as you can see, the site is Comal-Hisson. Excuse me for a sip of coffee. And then we have a series of units. For the most part, this excavation is, or this database is for the excavation itself, written in SQL, but accessible through FileMaker Pro. And so FileMaker Pro, while costly, if you want it on your computer to actually use and create a database, if you put it on an iPad, FileMaker Go is free. And this database is designed to be used on an iPad. So all my excavators have the iPad with them, and it's all touch sensitive. So if we were in this unit, which we call Gonzo, because numbers are just really annoying to remember, but Muppets, never annoying at all, Gonzo. So we have Gonzo, and if we're excavating it, you click the little trowel, and you can see we have general information that's input the day that I create that unit. And you see that here's my main excavator, some just general information as well as basic coordinates to make sure that if heaven forbid all of our survey data are lost. That's not the plan, obviously, but knowing that this is something that we want to sort of time proof, if you will. We record the data, sometimes replicate versions of it in several different places. Whenever my excavators go to the unit, they start on this tab every day, which is a day plan and narrative. And they tell us what's going on. It has a date timestamp here. If you were to add a new one, which I apologize, I'm not going to do right now. But if you were to add a new unit, you would start with, or excuse me, a new narrative, you would insert a date stamp, you would put your name in there and tell me exactly what you're doing at that time. What I find particularly exciting about this is that we are enabled to tie photographs to all stages of data recording. Now, as you all know, archaeology is inherently visual and tactile, right? We can't capture the tactileness in a digital program, though photogrammetry is certainly trying. What we can do, though, is make sure to get all of the visual elements tied together with the textual elements instead of sitting in disparate folders of your computer, which had been, and for say elephantine material I had been working with before I started working with this, is it's sitting in totally different folders, and maybe different people have different photographs that they have taken that need to be pulled together by the director, joined together, relabeled, and then somehow indexed. It's a pain. This does it all for you. And so what you see here, and we can blow this up, as a photograph of the north profile. We're looking, of course, at the close of the excavations. We're at the top of the page. And you can see our little lovely wall right here, our north arrow, the actual profile itself, as well as some of where we terminated excavations. This helps us, or let me step back. These photographs are taken on the iPad. So it's possible within the day plan button to click right here on that plus. And what it will do is it will move over to the iPad's interface. It'll open up the camera. You'll snap a picture with the camera, and then that will immediately upload into the database. This has been so successful that I have essentially stopped using DSLR photographs, because DSLR photographs have to be downloaded and labeled and put in a separate folder. And yes, they're higher quality. And yes, there's a place for them. And that place is object photography. But for the actual excavations, having an ingrained camera in the recorder that my excavators are using means that when in doubt, they can photograph. Are they not sure they've documented enough? Photograph it again. And so we have an abundance of photos that can then be downloaded from the database and used in publication. We've even used this in order to help capture our day plans, because we do still use pen and paper for drawing. I've had excavators try to do drawings, test out doing drawings in the field with vector programs. And frankly, I find that if we're looking at the 1 to 20 day plans, it's just easier and more effective and quicker, and time matters in the field, to draw these things on paper. And so my excavators draw them on paper, but then, and I do have all their notebooks are right over there on my shelf, but at the same time, we want these in the database. And so they take a quick snap of them into the database. They go, if heaven forbid their notebooks ever get lost, the data are doubly preserved, and they're preserved together with the unit materials. So this is the day plan and narrative section. But let's say I go, let's see. Let's say then, as I'm excavating, I open a new locus. Remember that a locus is a moment of human deposition. A wall's a locus, a dump's a locus, a hearth's a locus. So as they're excavating, they come into this new moment of deposition. So they will create a locus, which they would do by adding this plus, and the locus will automatically numerically define. We don't do it, the computer does it for us, thus ensuring no mistakes in double numbering, skipping numbers, etc. Or shall I say fewer mistakes. So you see here's the unit number, and then we're just giving a running number, an additional running number associated with the unit for the locus. And if we click here, we can see what we're recording. So we are separating description from interpretation. You'll notice that under observations, the excavators will include their description of what the locus looks like. They're not telling you what they think the locus is. That's interpretation. And interpretation is built on description, right? It has bricks of this centimeter and blah, blah, blah. Interpretation, it is a wall of a room. Those are clearly built on each other. But what I want us to do is to separate the difference, so that I can always access the description. The description won't really change, but the interpretation might change as we build more knowledge. And you see here that we have color, we have inclusions, a date that it's opened and closed. We work on a locus lot system. So we have an artificial lot system that's put into what are properly humanly defined loci. And I'm going to just gloss over that for the moment. There's the interpretation. Again, the photographs are incredibly key here. So this is locus 17 in Gonzo, and you can see the excavation, you can see the matrix. We have a lot of different shots of what's going on. Relations is putting the loci into the relationship with the surrounding loci so that we can essentially draw the Harris matrix. This allows us to understand the relationship of different deposits to each other, and thus better reassemble and recreate the human activity that actually resulted in this archaeological record. When we are in a locus and you're excavating, of course, you come on a bunch of finds. This is obvious. And those finds almost always include in Egypt pottery, again, another moment of obvious, but a series of other things as well. When these are generally bulk finds, right? You find a lot of broken pots. You find a lot of broken bones, or at least we do at Como Hisson. You'll find several lithics, and you'll find several bits of shell. So these are bulk finds. You click the plus, you add another find. Let's go ahead and look at the ceramics. And you can see that this is just basic descriptive info, because that's written, it's also physically written on a tag, this new number that's assigned to it. So locus 17-1, that's our tag number. It's written on the physical tag that's tied on the bag. But then you see that we say it's ceramic, and we have the ability to weigh it, to make more comments on it, etc. And that we also have the ability to photograph it. Now, we won't have photographs of many of the sherds because, again, shall we have a moment of honesty? They're sherds and they're kind of ugly, but we do have photographs, say, of the lithics, where we photographed everything because our lithic specialist wasn't able to come out. So that's all in the database. All the finds can be quickly referenced. Now, if I'm to go back to home, that's what a what an excavator will be interacting with every single day on this project. And then at night, when they've finished their excavation, they're going to go and work and make sure that their tags are filled in, that they put in all the data that they can. For many members of the team, though, they don't really need that part of the database. What they need is the specialist portion of the data, the people who work on lithics, the people who work on the archaeobotany, the animal bones, the people who work on the ceramics, which is this woman in this case. And this database is not as strong for specialist use. Specialists will often use their own databases, their own Excel spreadsheets, their own programs to do whatever legwork that they need to do. What this database does do to unify specialists is it allows the specialists to have easy access to all of the collected material in their specialty so that they can double check it and then back reference it to the actual excavation itself. The registrar, probably the unsung hero of the excavation, will be the person who puts all of this, the physical stuff that comes back to the dig house or the tent or the crummy little apartment, whatever you're working out of, who brings these artifacts back and has to double check the tags, do some of the sorting, the weighing, some of the photography, to figure out where everything's stored and make sure that we can find everything again. Unsung hero or heroine. So if we look here, I'm just going to go to collected material. The ceramicist tag is not as useful, so we're not going to work through it. But you see here that what I've done actually already is I've sorted it by type. So you can see if you are the lithic specialist, you're coming in, and you are going to be able to pull up all of the tags and just click on any of them and magically come over, get some basic information, and look at the photographs. So this is a wonderful way to share data between specialists, to share data between excavators, and for myself as director to have access to almost all of the data. However, as I noted, it doesn't really work terribly well for specialists. Let's talk about why for a second. Specialists all approach their material a little differently. Some fields, archaeobotany is a good example, have more consistent methods than other fields, say ceramics, where the methods get redefined by each new project and by each new ceramicist. Different specialists prefer to work with different programs, and there's just a truth to the fact that we're accustomed to what we're accustomed to. So I'm going to take off my director hat for a second, and I'm going to reach over here and put on my ceramicist hat and talk to you about what, as a specialist, I need from digital material. And I continue to be a big believer in it. In fact, it's just that we have to change platforms. So what you're looking at now is InfoArc. You can see its little name up here. This is our data recording for ceramics at Komolhissen. Note, this does not take the place of ceramic recording in the fieldwork database. The fieldwork database, I create the tag and I give very basic information about the pots. That's done by my excavators. My excavators literally write the little tag with the number that the computer assigned. We're thinking about barcoding. That's another story. And then they'll tie it on to the Schwell and put the Schwell aside, and then I come at it. So those data already live in the fieldwork database. But when I come to it, now I need to do more particular analysis and particular recording. And so what we do is I come at it, and this runs, I will open this up on my iPad. Worth noting that this runs on an iPad in a browser, but that browser caches locally, so does not require internet connection while you are working. If you work in Egypt, you know internet connections are not reliable. This is also true, by the way, for the fieldwork database, which, while it's fully digital, you are recording locally, and then it will be synchronized with all the other material from the other excavators later when you have an internet connection. In fact, my 2020 database, I think, got synchronized like 2 months ago. So what you see here is what you would see on your browser, on your iPad, being able to work offline. I would look at, as a ceramicist, I get the material after it comes out of the excavations, wherever it is, whether it's on the side of the dig house, whether it's at the dig house, whether it's a tent on the site, it's different by site, right? So I'm going to take the physical tag that the excavators wrote on, where they wrote the number that the fieldwork database assigned to this. I am making up a number because I will be deleting this record later. So I'm inputting that number that I'm reading off the tag. I might or might not know the date at that time. It's possible, particularly say if I'm looking at the Gonzo unit, Gonzo was Old Kingdom. It's possible that I won't know it, in which case I'll leave it undated and I'll come back and deal with it later because this is editable in the long term. I will enter a detail date again if I know it. If I don't, I won't. I'll deal with it later. The date will default to today's date. That's the date of entry, which was fun to work with the computer programmers because date means one thing to them and means about 50 things to an archaeologist. So we had to work through date a lot. Process by, in this case, that would be me. And then let's say we're doing basic processing. I'm going to add a group of sherds. And what I do at Comohisan is when I have to move fast and I can't look at everything because we have a tremendous amount of material. In 3 weeks, we excavated 2 tons of pottery. Literally, it's actually a little over 2 tons. I know because I have all the numbers because it's in a digital database. So I have the wear type. It's called fabric type here. That's a misnomer. I apologize. So wear, I'm going to say it's coarse wear. It's a body sherd. Let's say it's a body sherd. It's still a body sherd. Let's say I have 150 coarse body sherds and they weigh 1.7 kilograms. I can enter some comments here. Lots of beer jar bases and additional notes. Those 2 fields have to be sort of worked through, and then you save it. And then you add another. Let's say I'm adding a fine diagnostic. Let's say it's the rim, one singular rim of a Meidum bowl, or one singular rim. Yeah, we're just going to go of a bowl. Just leave it there. And I'm just going to save. Now I can submit it. And then it goes into the offline database records, waiting for me to have internet connection to upload it. Let me do one more thing for you, because I want you to see how cool this is, because the database recognizes when you might have just a little bit of information, because some sherds you can't say much about. And there are other sherds, drawable diagnostics, that you can say a lot about. You have a lot of data. This, if you go to detailed processing, can do that. So let's go ahead and add a record. Let's say it's a diagnostic sherd. Or let me stop. Let's say it's a body sherd. That's all the information I'm going to get from a body sherd. The program knows it because I've told them. Let's say that I can do more. Let's say that I have a diagnostic sherd. And you see how immediately the screen shifts? I can do more with the diagnostic sherd. If I have an object number, I'm going to type it in. And if it's, I put in the wear, the surface treatment, all this other evidence. And if it's drawn, yet again, it gives me a space for even more data. So this is a way to take what would be actually a very cumbersome paper form. And I have these as paper forms, and they're very cumbersome because I have to include all of these data so that if I get that sherd, I am able to put it in the form. There's still space for it. Here, we're able to fold it out, which makes it really terribly user-friendly. It's not able to capture the drawings, and still pen and paper drawing, or pencil and paper drawings are the most important things that I can do with the diagnostic sherd. This does not trump them. But what I can do is recognize what type family it is based on a typology that I've created. So this is an open form. This is a cup. And then I can go through and pick out of the open form cups that I know and be like, oh yes, I recognize that. And it fills it in for me. And then I save it and I submit it. And it's here, my offline database record, which I will upload when I'm on internet connection. Now, all of this is very cool because it then goes where it's created by, or let me step back. It goes into a business intelligence dashboard that is able to take all of those data that are entered, including any that I just uploaded to the cloud, and it's able to perform preliminary analyses on these. Let me reload this so you can see these. So I can get a tremendous amount of data on things immediately, allowing me to make better selections about what I'm going to study, what I'm going to spend time on, and perhaps even in some cases where it's worth excavating, where it's worth dedicating more manpower and woman power. So this has been very, very exciting. I should note, I didn't create it. I do not have these skills. This was created by Infosol, which is a business intelligence company based in Phoenix, Arizona. They have named it InfoArc and created it in tandem with me, in consultation with me, particularly for these projects. So it's a database, or excuse me, a computer scientist who's done it. He's written it in SQL with several other additional programs. It's all open source. One could write this oneself without paying for software. One just has to know how to write it. Which I think gets to the crux of the matter that I'd like to leave you with today. Let me stop share. Because we can do so many cool things with archaeology and computing. It's really important that we do these cool things. But we can't do them without the knowledge to actually handle it ourselves. Looking to other specialists, I've been very lucky and it's been wonderful, but it's a crapshoot. We have to be lucky enough. And these people do get paid much better than archaeologists do. What's incumbent upon us, I think, at the student level, and so here's where I'm looking directly at you. Wait, let me make sure I'm making eye contact. This is where I'm looking directly at you. What's important at the student level is for students to start cultivating these computer science skills where they have the aptitude or interest so that they can bring them to their projects, they can bring them with them to their own analysis and help move the ball forward. There's a great field in archaeology that's waiting to get going. We just need the computer scientists and the computer science skills to get us there. So thank you very much for your attention. I am open to any questions that you might have. Have a lovely day.